This is a Indian War veteran who was a Medal of Honor winner, who is still interned in that park. I believe there's another one from the Civil War, isn't there?
There's about 70 Civil War veterans buried there, and 12 Spanish-American War veterans buried there.
Which is unconscionable to me.
Well, it's also against state and federal law to not have their graves marked. The city is in violation of state and federal laws.
And you look at the dates here, obviously these are pioneers. I mean, 1856 to 1878.
This is a who's who of Ventura County.
There's a guy walking his 3 dogs, and they're all relieving themselves on this sacred property. I mean, this was holy ground, right? Consecrated.
This is hallowed ground. The state cemetery law requires that there's a perimeter fence around the cemetery. There is no fence here. The city is in violation of state law.
Yeah, this was a couple of family headstones there with a nice little dog deposit right there with Mr. Hollingsworth. And
this is unconscionable. The city permits this kind of stuff to go on.
I saw nobody enforcing the park rules at all when I was there.
There is none. They say they'll get around to it in the future sometime, but in the last 3-4 years that we've been trying to get the cemetery restored, they have done absolutely zero.
There's a couple dogs running free in the park.
It's spite.
Now this really surprised me. This is the wife of Mr. Olivas, who founded the Olivas Hacienda landowner. Mrs. Olivas is buried in this situation. There's more headstones marked by the red circles near the car park. And you were saying something about the car park.
I found that there's 7 people buried underneath the parking lot there that was using the city's own burial records and the plot plans to find these people. The city's denied that there's anybody buried there.
And this was a family grouping of interments, and they had a nice power drink can right next to Mrs. Hobson's headstone.
Mr. Hobson was the father of the county.
Is that right?
Father of Ventura. He got a group together to succeed from Santa Barbara County and started Ventura County in the 1860s.
So he's an original family then.
The Hobson is a very original family.
And then this is the, I love the condition of the city sign on poli, I guess. This is on poli. The sign has been obviously graffitied and eggs thrown on. And so you can kind of see how this area is not taken care of. And then that number is actually wrong, 2,800. It's closer to 3,000.
Closer to 3,000.
This is information that I was new to getting. And again, we're going back just to remember, you know, total disregard for people's resting places.
One interesting aspect of this is when the grand jury investigated the city twice, 2 independent studies, investigations they did about this desecration, they found in their own research that the city does not own the Protestant section nor the Hebrew sections of the cemetery, that they just simply grabbed it and have been using it illegally. So all monies, all tax monies that they use on these holy religious grounds is actually in violation of the California state constitution.
Wow.
They're using tax monies, public monies, to desecrate religious grounds.
Wow. Yeah, that's fraud. I mean, that's all kinds of fraud going on right there. And that's the ruling. Now, your ancestors and what they've done in their lives, I think it shows of great respect. And that's unfortunately seems to be very lacking in this situation, certainly, because it seems like this is just totally unethical, outlaw, I don't know, situation. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this show, was to get the word out to people, to get involved in St. Mary's situation, because if it could happen to those folks, that don't have anybody speaking for them. We need to get the information out and do as much as we can for the people who can't speak, especially on this Memorial Day. So now you were also mentioning that underneath the mission school downtown, there's another cemetery that is being desecrated.
That was quite a bizarre situation. I was knee-deep in St. Mary's and trying to publicize the desecration. And somebody casually had walked up to me one day and said, there's another cemetery that's got close to 4,000 people in desecrated graves. And I said, yeah, right, sure.
The same town?
In the same town.
Wow.
And I asked, I said, well, where? And this person had said, if you go down to Mission San BuenaVentura, the original cemetery right next to the chapel has got 3,850 people buried there. And it is now, they built a schoolhouse, the Catholic clergy built a schoolhouse on top of the mission cemetery.
So here, before, with the park situation, it was more of a municipality land grab, and then the one down at the mission is more of the Catholic Church was involved?
The Catholic clergy, against Catholic canon law that says you cannot touch hallowed ground, went ahead and built a schoolhouse right on top of those graves.
And the interments weren't moved?
No, the interments weren't moved at all.
Gosh, what is going on here? It's like a thread going on here.
I think that in 1922 the schoolhouse was built on top of the cemetery at the mission. And I think the reason why they did it was they didn't want to put the money into grading some property to put the schoolhouse on there. So they took advantage of having the level ground and put the schoolhouse right on top of that ground, which is a crime against Catholic canon law.
So it was expediency over...
Well, I think money is involved, the greed of not having to spend the money.
I see.
And I think that went over probably somewhat negatively amongst the parishioners, but the city saw as an example how the church was able to get away with this, and in their own time, when they looked at their own cemetery that they wanted to do some things to, they said, the Catholic Church did it, we should be able to get rid of it too.
Oh, I see, the timeline. Okay, so the timeline was 22 for the mission.
For the mission, and then you get 1955, 65 with the city going after...
with the park.
The park, right.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's a very interesting point.
See, in 65, the city wanted to change it into a park, and the city went to the church and said, can we have St. Mary's from you? And they said, sure, you can do whatever you want with the cemetery, but it's got to be kept as a memorial for the dead. And if that's violated, then it reverts back to the church. This is written right into the deed transfer. Well, they wrote it in, but when the city started pulling out headstones and turning it into a park, the Catholic Church just let it go. At that point, they could have contested and gotten the cemetery back. But not to make any waves, they just went ahead and sold out the 1,000 Catholics that are buried there.
Now, this is setting up our second roll-in with